Hello and welcome to this ATANZ and Friends webinar on voice banking, streaming to you across the globe from Christchurch, here in New Zealand. I'm Kenny Ardwin and I'm a speech-language therapist at the TalkLink Trust.
Hello, I'm Jackie Hancock and I'm also a speech-language therapist at the TalkLink Trust.
I'm Michelle Wesley and I'm a speech-language therapist completing a Masters at the University of Canterbury, specialising in voice banking.
We all believe that voice banking is an amazing technology that enables people to retain their personality and identity when they are no longer able to use their own voice.
Today, we will share some tips and tricks with you to help your patients, clients, family members and friends to benefit from this incredible technology from the comfort of your own home or practice.
Before we begin discussing voice banking and the ModelTalker system, it's worth clarifying the differences between phrase banking and voice banking.
Phrase banking, also referred to as message banking, involves recording whole words or phrases for future use in a speech-generating device. Recorded messages can be programmed directly into a device and used when needed for communication. With this method, only recorded words or phrases will use the person's natural voice. Newly created messages using spelling or use the device's artificial or synthesized voice.
Voice banking, on the other hand, involves the creation of a personalised synthetic voice created from recordings of the user's own voice. This method allows for both recorded messages and newly created messages using spelling to be spoken using the customised synthetic voice.
ModelTalker is a speech synthesis system designed specifically for users of speech-generating devices. It is designed to benefit people who are losing or who have already lost their ability to speak. It requires the potential user to record a large sample of words and phrases using a specific software program. There are other speech synthesis programs available too, but this webinar will focus on the ModelTalker system.
So who can use a ModelTalker voice? ModelTalker's primary use is for people using a speech-generated device who have previously had unimpaired speech and would like to have their own voice used in their device. People with degenerative conditions affecting speech, such as motor neurone disease, Parkinson's disease, and other progressive motor speech disorders, may be good candidates for ModelTalker, assuming their recordings begin while the person is still in the earlier stages of the disease progression.
So what do you need to complete your voice banking? Firstly, you'll need a computer, Windows or Mac, that can run on battery and has a quiet fan. You'll need a USB headset microphone and a broadband internet connection. A quiet space to record, free of background noise and distractions. The person recording will need to have relatively unimpaired or mildly impaired speech, as the quality and clarity of the ModelTalker voice will largely depend on the recorded voice. The person will also need to be motivated and have time to complete the recordings.
So, when can I start? Ideally, as soon as possible, particularly if your speech is deteriorating. Voice banking is recommended in the early stages. As mentioned, unimpaired speech is preferable, but a mild impairment in speech intelligibility is also okay. For this reason, it's advisable to consult with a speech-language therapist before beginning the process of voice banking.
Over the next hour, we will cover the following: background about ModelTalker and who can use it, 10 steps to creating your own voice, showcasing some example voices and their purposes, some frequently asked questions, upcoming options for people who cannot record their own voice. We hope you find this webinar practical and informative. There will be an opportunity at the end to ask questions.
Now let's take a look at the 10 steps to creating your own ModelTalker voice. Step 1. Finding an environment and getting everything ready. A smaller room, especially one with soft furnishings and somewhere comfortable to sit because you might be here for a while, is important. Finding somewhere away from the road and other background noise such as fridges and air conditioners. A bedroom is often very suitable for this purpose, or even better, a walk-in wardrobe. Again, as long as it's got somewhere comfortable that you can sit. Once you've found your room, then you need to have a think about what computer you're going to use. A MacBook is preferable, but we don't all have one of those. So in that case, a laptop with Google Chrome will do. Whatever computer you use, make sure you're using Google Chrome, as it's the only browser supported by ModelTalker. You'll want a good, stable internet connection, because Wi-Fi is required to upload each sentence as it's recorded. Ideally, your computer should have quiet fans that won't interfere in any way with the recording, and a good battery life, as you want to be unplugged when recording to reduce any electrical noise coming through the recording. Step 2 is to register with ModelTalker on the ModelTalker website, www.modeltalker.org. When there, click on the registration button and then New, as you're recording a new account. Click on the Register button for voice banker or recipient, because this best describes what you are doing. Now, it will ask you to fill in your details, so scroll down the page and fill in all of the required fields, such as your name, your email address, and if you are working with a speech therapist from TalkLink, ensure that their email address is put in the CC email, as this will mean that they get all the emails copied to them as well. Next, create a user ID and a password that you'll remember. You'll need this every time that you log into ModelTalker. You can skip all of the address information, as it is not mandatory information. You will, however, need to select your gender, in this case for Jane Doe, and enter your age. It is highly recommended that you select your English variant, as this helps ModelTalker when they put together your eventual voice. Although New Zealand English will be the most common one that we put in here, if your dialect is different, it's important to let us know. After selecting your country's dialect, you'll then be asked to select the regional dialect. Please note that not all regional dialects are available, so simply click the closest match. You'll then be asked on which operating system you're recording. In this case, it's Mac, however many people will use Windows as their operating system. Next, you need to give permission to retain your speech files to be used for the purposes of making a voice. The second box, you can either give or decline permission for examples of your speech to be used for other people. Once you have completed this and read the ModelTalker License and Terms of Service Agreement, click the box to indicate that you have read and agreed to the terms and conditions. Then, click Register. Your registration is now complete, and an email confirming your details will have been sent to you. You are now ready to move on to Step 3.
Step 3. Set up your studio. Let's look at the microphone positioning. Use only a USB headset, as inbuilt computer microphones are not suitable. Position the microphone just beneath the chin and off to one side. Keep this consistent between recording sessions. Be aware of any buttons on the microphone itself and ensure these buttons are kept to a consistent configuration to prevent accidental muting during recording. Next, connecting the mic. Here we are using a Mac. If you're using a Mac, ensure you untick noise reduction before plugging in the USB microphone. In Sound System Preferences, select the headset mic as the output and input device. Set the input level to an appropriate level, usually around 75 to 100%. It will be important to keep these settings consistent while completing each separate recording. Mac devices hold these settings, however Windows devices may not, so check your settings each time you start a new recording session.
Now that you've plugged in your microphone and checked your mic settings, you're ready to move on to Step 4, which is getting ready to record on the ModelTalker website. Return to where you just registered before, and this time tick Proceed to online setup and recording and click Continue. Great, you are now at the page where you're ready to record. Keep heading down to the bottom of the page and click Continue. On the next page, you'll be asked to measure the silence. First of all, check the little camera icon in the top right of your screen and ensure that the correct microphone is selected. As we can see, our Sennheiser USB headset is selected here. Now, it goes without saying that when measuring the silence, you and others in the room need to keep as quiet as you can to avoid any unwanted background noise. The ideal measurement for the silence is somewhere between -50 and -80 decibels. A little bit outside of those ranges is acceptable, so long as it's consistent from one recording to the next. Once you've got a silence level you're happy with, click Continue to move on to the next step. You'll now be asked to record a test sentence. Put on your microphone if you've not already got it on, ensure it's in the correct microphone position, and then click Record and read aloud the sentence on the screen.
Peter sold a sheet of paper to Tom.
ModelTalker should automatically pick up when you've finished recording. If it does not, this is a sign that you need to go back to step 3 and check your microphone settings. Now click Listen to ensure that you are able to hear your voice back and that it doesn't sound distorted in any way.
Peter sold a sheet of paper to Tom.
It sounds good, so click Continue. You are now ready to move to step 5 and record your screening sentences. Step 5. Recording the screen. ModelTalker will insist on you recording 10 screening sentences. This gives them an idea as to whether your current setup is going to be sufficient for recording the full 1600 phrases. It's important to get the screen right because you don't want to have to re-record hundreds of phrases if something is amiss later on. In the inventory name, ensure that screen is entered. Often it will be entered automatically, but if not, simply enter it as shown. Ensure that the microphone remains the correct microphone. You'll once again be asked to measure the silence. We'll do that now. That's good, as it is consistent with our recording from before. As I said in the previous step, if this is largely different to what you'd had in another session, go back to step 3 and check your microphone settings. By default, the gain should be set to 1 and silence pad to 0.5. There are some instances where these may need to be changed, but that will be discussed with you by ModelTalker directly. Click Start when you're ready to continue. You'll now see 3 meters in front of you: peak amplitude, speech rate, and pronunciation. Your amplitude is simply your volume. Ideally, you want this to be within the green section, although some degree of variation within the yellow section is okay too. Similarly, with your speech rate, the aim is to be within the green section. However, we appreciate this is not always possible for people with some conditions, as their dysarthria may mean that their speech rate is decreased. We would recommend having an accurate voice as opposed to one that's fast and complies with the speech rate but is inaccurate. The third meter is pronunciation. When recording in New Zealand, you can ignore this meter as it is calibrated to American English. Along the top, you'll see a progress meter. At the present time, it's showing 0 of 10. This is showing how many phrases in the current inventory you have recorded. When you are ready to go, click the record button and read aloud the message on the screen. You'll receive a prompt prior to doing so.
I say this to my friends.
After recording each phrase, have a look at the first 2 meters. You'll see that Michelle's volume is a little bit on the low side, but nothing to be too worried about. Her speech rate is good. It's within the green section. As I mentioned before, you can safely ignore the pronunciation meter. Proceed to record phrase number 2.
The grizzled old fellow could see on one side.
It's important to maintain a monotonous, often almost boring voice while recording these phrases. You will then go through and record the remainder of the phrases. Once you've completed your 10 recordings, the progress meter at the top will show as complete. If you scroll down the page, you'll be able to see the recordings that you've just done. It's worth mentioning as well that the voice prompt that you receive is audible in your ear through the headset that you're using at the time, as opposed to the computer speakers. Once you become adept at using ModelTalker, you don't have to wait for the prompt. You can simply click record and get started straight away. It's worth reviewing your 10 phrases before sending them off for approval. Ideally, you want green or yellow in the first 2 columns. As you can see, Michelle's recordings all fit in this category. Once again, the 3rd column is the pronunciation meter, and you can safely ignore this, so the red mark beside he had rising the wheelbarrow is not a problem. For the purposes of this demonstration, we'll re-record sentence number 1. In reality, if you were seeing this on your screen, you'd be more than happy to click finalize and send them through, with there being no real need to re-record. However, should you want to re-record a phrase, simply click on the phrase and it will take you back to where you can re-record. As before, simply click record.
I say this to my friends.
Once it has saved, you'll be able to scroll down and review the recording. As you'll see, this one has now gone green. Once you are happy, scroll up to the top of the page and click finalize. Once you click finalize, you'll no longer be able to edit your phrases or re-record them. It will send them through to ModelTalker, who will review manually your recordings and give you the green light to proceed, or let you know if there's something that you need to re-record. Don't get disheartened if you don't pass on the first time. This is quite usual, and it's usually a matter of something in the environment that needs corrected. TalkLink can work with you to help with this if required. Michelle will now click finalize. You'll be prompted to confirm, and just a reminder once again, you cannot go back and do any more recordings at this stage. That's done. It will now be sent through to ModelTalker, and you'll hear back within 1 to 2 business days to let you know where things are at, and if you need to re-record anything, or if you're ready to proceed to the next step and record the full inventory.
Step 8. Common issues and how to fix them. For example, Kenny, I did my recordings, but it told me that my volume was too loud. What should I do?
Yeah, so if it comes back and your volume's too loud, again, return to the microphone input settings that we discussed in step 3 and just pull down the volume by about 25%. Have a go at re-recording, and again, check the silence levels. If they're higher than -50, that's a sign your volume could be too loud.
Okay, great. And would that be the same if it was too quiet?
That's exactly right. So if it's too quiet, just go the opposite way. Bump up the volume a little bit more. This is again, if you're already at maximum volume and it thinks you're too quiet, you can bump up the gain, but only do that after talking to ModelTalker first.
Perfect, alright. So I've tried again, but this time they're telling me that they can hear hissing noises in my recordings.
That can be for a number of reasons, but the most common one is there's something going on within the computer itself. It could be that the fans are hissing away, or that you've got the power cable plugged in and there's electrical noise that we can't hear, but that the recordings pick up. Try running it again on battery power, and ideally in a cool environment where the fans won't feel the need to run.
Perfect. Alright, couple more. The next time that I tried, they told me that they could hear puffing noises. What should I do for that?
Again, that's usually caused by your microphone position, so check your microphone position and ensure it's down in the corner of your chin. If you have it right in front of your mouth, it picks up on all that air that comes out as we speak.
Awesome.
You can also get foam caps to put on your microphone, such as this one here, which help to dampen some of that puffing.
Perfect. Last one, they also said that there was a bit much background noise. Is there ways that I can help that?
Yeah, ideally have a look again at your environment and see what's going on. If you're recording it in a large sort of open plan space where maybe there's a kitchen with a fridge and things like that, it's probably not an ideal environment. See if you can find a quiet bedroom that's ideally away from the road, not directly underneath any flight paths, or that there's not a jackhammer next door, and have another go at re-recording.
Okay, perfect. I might try the walk-in wardrobe this time.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kenny.
So step 9. Good news, Michelle got the approval to go ahead and record the full inventory. Step 9 encompasses the 1600 phrases and custom inventories. Let's look at the full 1600 phrase inventory first. So, once you log back into your ModelTalker account after receiving the go-ahead, you'll be presented with this familiar screen once again, except this time, under inventory, you will type full. As always, ensure that your microphone is the correct microphone and then proceed to measure the silence. Good, this value is again similar to what we had in the last sessions. Click on Start and it will load the full inventory. You'll see along the top your progress meter, this time with a much larger number of 1600. The process from here, however, is the same, and you will simply record phrases at your leisure. Michelle will now record this phrase.
The boy was too excited to care very much about it.
Unlike with the screening sentences, it is highly unlikely you're going to be able to record all 1600 phrases in one go. This is absolutely fine, and you can leave ModelTalker at any time and come back to it, as it saves each phrase you do as you do it. So you don't even have to round it off to a nice even number before leaving it for the day. Most people can record somewhere between 50 and 200 phrases per session. We highly recommend that you check in with ModelTalker after recording 100, 200, 400 and 800 phrases to ensure that you are still on the right track. As I said earlier, there is nothing worse than recording a large number of phrases only to have to re-record them later.
One awesome feature that I enjoyed previewing when I was doing my voice banking was a preview of my synthesized voice as it was being created. To access this, after your first 25 sentences that you record, a little number 1 will appear in this box. You can click on Voices, and here will come up different lists of numbers as to the stages of your voice. For the example here, you could click number 25, enter in any text you like. If you click Listen, you'll hear a preview of what your synthesized voice is sounding like so far. As you work through the 1600 sentences, you'll get previews every 100, 200 and then 400 sentences. So every so often you can check in, see how you're sounding, and it's quite interesting seeing how your voice progresses over time. Another interesting feature of the ModelTalker system is the ability to create custom inventories. To do this, simply click on your username and select Custom Inventory. This will take you to a page where you can enter the names of people, places and things that you want to be sure your voice pronounces correctly. You could also enter in some special phrases that you also want your voice to say correctly. There are boxes that you can enter in the above items and phrases and sentences, and then you submit. Once you submit these, the custom inventory is generated, and this is added on to the very end of your 1600 sentences. So once you record the full inventory, you'll get the chance to record your custom inventory at the end.
Step 10. Considerations for dysarthria. Of course, a lot of people who are using ModelTalker will already have a mild speech impairment, which does present a few challenges, but usually nothing that cannot be overcome with a little bit of Kiwi ingenuity. For example, you may not necessarily need to record the complete 1600 phrases. ModelTalker are very good at making up voices earlier on for people who cannot quite complete the full amount. As Michelle was mentioning earlier, you can listen to your voice after there are mere 25 phrases, and from about 400 phrases onwards, usually there is a usable voice, albeit not as great as one that would be produced after recording the full 1600 phrases. Secondly, you can adjust the silence gap setting within the screen settings dialog box, where you measure your silence. By default, the silence pad is set to 0.5 seconds. What this means is that after not detecting any input or any sound for half a second, the recording will cut off. However, for some people, they may need a longer period of time before it cuts off. You can increase this to 1, 2 or more seconds, depending on your individual circumstances. Thirdly, you may find that recording 50 to 200 phrases per session is a bit of a big ask. That's fine too. As we were saying earlier, you can stop recording in a session at any point that you please. If you can only get through 20 or 25 sentences in the session, that's fine too. Just take it at your own pace. Next, you may find it's a lot better when you record when you are feeling at your most fresh. For a lot of people, this is in the morning, rather than later in the day or the afternoon when we become tired. And finally, stop recording altogether when you feel that there's a diminishing return on recording more phrases. 1600 phrases, as I was saying before, are optimum, but a voice can be generated with fewer phrases. If you feel that recording more phrases in ModelTalker is becoming more trouble than it's worth, talk to your speech therapist. It may be time to discontinue further recording.
So now the 10 steps are complete. ModelTalker will be in communication with you to organise the auditioning and downloading process to get your voice. Here are some examples of some people's natural speech and the synthesised voices that they have completed via voice banking. Our first example is a female, 50 years old. This is her natural speech.
It grows faster than anything else on earth.
And this is her synthesised voice created through ModelTalker.
It grows faster than anything else on earth.
Our second example is a 40-year-old male. This is his natural voice.
That's what life is really all about.
And this is his synthesised voice.
That's what life is really all about.
Our third example is a child. This is a female, aged 13 years. This is her natural voice.
He has played very well.
And her synthesised voice.
He has played very well.
Hi, my name is Gary. I prepared this recording to tell you about my experience in creating my digital voice using the ModelTalker program and to give you an example of how the voice sounds. I hope you find it useful. I was diagnosed with the progressive bulbar type of MND about 6 months ago. At this time my voice was already affected. After discussing options with the awesome team at TalkLink, my wife and I decided we'd like to create my own digital voice using the ModelTalker program. To do this, the ModelTalker team provided me with 1,600 sentences to record. This took me around 12 hours of recording, usually in 1 hour sessions in the morning. I think I could have reduced this down to around 8 hours if we had faster internet. In total, I've had 3 iterations of my digital voice. The first was generated after recording the first 1,600 sentences. The second was after I recorded a further 800 sentences. This was optional, and I chose to do it with the hope of improving the quality of some of the words generated by the program. I think this was partially necessary, as the software used by ModelTalker struggled with my Kiwi accent. Finally, I provided around 160 names, place names, and common New Zealand words, which the team at ModelTalker converted into sentences for recording. This was done with the intention of improving the quality of some specific names and words that were important to me. The recording of the 800 sentences and their names took another 5 hours. In order to give you a feel for the quality of the digital voice, I've recorded a sample of the original voice generated after the first 1,600 sentences, and also the final voice provided after the recording of the additional sentences and the specific names and New Zealand words. The recordings are a little silly, as I've tried to select some words that highlight specific aspects of the digital voices and squeeze them into sentences. I speak the phrases first, so you can get a comparison between our natural and synthetic voices. Here goes. Hi, my name is Gary. I live on Kennedy Bush Road in Christchurch with my wife Karen. I like to drink beer and eat bananas. We have a garden where we have planted mainly natives, including kawaii trees and some pittos. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Okay, that's it. Now here are the same phrases from my Mark I digital voice.
Hi, my name is Gary. I live on Kennedy's Bush Road in Christchurch with my wife Karen. I like to drink beer and eat bananas. We have a garden where we have planted mainly natives, including kawaii trees and some pittos. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
That was the Mark I voice, and now for the final digital voice.
Hi, my name is Gary. I live on Kennedy's Bush Road in Christchurch with my wife Karen. I like to drink beer and eat bananas. We have a garden where we have planted mainly natives, including kawaii trees and some pittos. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
So there you go. You may have noticed that the synthetic voices were both fairly good, but I did feel the final version was simply better in some areas. Both voices struggled with some words like Christchurch, and I had to shorten pittosporums down to pittos. I also had to type an R in banana to stop it saying banana. I think that with time, I will learn a few more tricks that will make it even better. The digital voice definitely sounds like me, it just struggles with some words. Overall, I'm pretty happy with my digital voice, and I'm certainly glad I took the time to do the recordings. Good luck with creating your own voice if you decide to go ahead.
Once you have your ModelTalker voice, you can use it on a variety of different AAC, that stands for Alternative and Augmentative Communication Systems. One such example would be a laptop running software such as Communicator 5.
Here we have an iPad running Predictable, and ModelTalker loads directly into that app.
It's also available for systems on Surface Pros.
ModelTalker can be run on Windows, on dedicated communication devices, for example Accents and GridPads.
And there's a number of Android devices that support ModelTalker as well, so whatever device you end up with, there's options that may incorporate ModelTalker for you.
There are also a number of novelty features which you can use your voice for on your laptop, iPad or other device, including Android phones, such as using on Google Maps, or on your laptop or other phones. Any on-screen text can be read aloud by your own voice, including the weather, any other website, or announcing that you have a calendar event. Now we have a few frequently asked questions. Is there any charge for building a ModelTalker synthetic voice?
Yes, there is now a $150 New Zealand charge for ModelTalker's voice banking service, which is actually less than many other systems which cost thousands of dollars. In New Zealand, this fee is met by the Ministry of Health for eligible people, so there is no charge to voice bank if you have a progressive condition. Talk to your friendly TalkLink speech therapist if you would like more information on how the funding works. This may vary in other countries. Check with your health provider in your country to see if you may be eligible for financial support where you live.
Can you guarantee that I will be able to make a usable synthetic voice?
Unfortunately not. Everyone's voice, as well as their recording equipment and environment, is different, and so we cannot promise a successful outcome. The good news is that there's no charge unless you are happy with your voice.
If I make a personal synthetic voice, will it sound just like me?
Your personal synthetic voice will probably capture your natural voice quality very well, but the speech will still not sound exactly like you, because it is synthetic. The timing and intonation of sentences spoken by ModelTalker will probably sound much more robotic than your natural speech. Be sure to listen to the examples of natural and synthetic voices to get a realistic idea of how ModelTalker voices compare to natural speech.
Do you offer any customer support or help, or am I completely on my own?
TalkLink and ModelTalker support you through the process. TalkLink will provide on-the-ground expertise here in New Zealand, backed up by support directly from ModelTalker in the United States. Any questions in the first instance should be directed to your local TalkLink office.
Can I try it out without having to pay?
Yes, you absolutely can. Clinicians, clients, family, anyone can try ModelTalker and even complete the whole recording process and demo your voice free of charge. There is only a charge when you wish to use your voice with a communication system.
Can I donate my voice for others to use?
You certainly can. You can donate by signing up as a voice donor on the ModelTalker website, where you'll be able to create your own voice, which will be available for you and others to use.
Do I have to wait for TalkLink before getting started?
No, and we hope that this webinar has proven how simple it can be to record your own voice. As we recommend starting sooner rather than later, there is no need to wait for TalkLink, and we encourage you to start if you think voice banking is something that you would like. If you have any more questions, ModelTalker has a great frequently asked questions sections. Just visit their website, www.modeltalker.org/FAQ.
People who are unable to record their own voice still have the option to use a New Zealand accented voice on their device. 10 New Zealand accented synthesized voices have been created using ModelTalker software. This was part of my master's project and included 2 children and 8 adult voice donors. The 10 New Zealand voices range in age from 9 to 65 years. 2 of the voice donors were Māori speakers who recorded an extended inventory of 65 core vocabulary words in the Māori language. The New Zealand voices will be available soon for speech-generating device users. Please inquire with TalkLink speech therapists to find out more.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you are now inspired and confident to use this technology with the people that you work with. We will now open up for any questions.
thank you very much for joining us and for listening. Feel free to use the Q&A section down the bottom to ask any questions. Or you should have a button as well which lets you put your hand up and we can take questions from you that way. So I'll answer some of the questions that are already here. Are we able to have the quick tips slides or information from this presentation, please? We will put the whole webinar will be available again on demand for people to catch up and watch at their leisure. And also we have a handy ModelTalker quick guide which outlines pretty much all those steps in a simple to follow format as well. Another question we've got is if a client wanted to use a donor voice, is it also $150? That's a good question. That's something we're in the process of working through with ModelTalker at the moment as part of Michelle's project. But I think the key point is, regardless of how it's done, it would be something that would be met by Ministry of Health funding. If they're eligible for funding, of course. Yeah. I think that's all the questions we've got. Might hang on just for another minute or two in case anyone's typing one. There's another one. Are there plans to develop more variety in children's voices? Michelle, maybe you want to talk to that one from your project's perspective.
So hi there guys. So my project had included 2 children. One was a 9-year-old boy and one was a 13-year-old girl, and that was sort of the scope of my master's project. But the need for New Zealand accented child voices are really high here in New Zealand, although I don't have any idea of if they are going to be making more in the future. It could be an idea if people had children who wanted to donate their voice for a classmate or for a sibling. That could definitely be a way of getting some more variety in the child voices. One thing to note is with the child recordings, the children they do tend to take a little bit longer than adults to complete the recordings, just because they may not be able to attend for the same amount of time or sit still. They might need a few more breaks. So there is a few differences in recording with children, but it definitely can be done. Yeah.
Great. I'm just having a few more questions come in now. If you're working with a client with dysarthria, do you recommend letting ModelTalker know after the test phrases? Yeah, I definitely do. And I think that CC email field is pretty handy for that as well. I mean, they will generally pick it up at their end. They're pretty well attuned to listening out for that. As I say, generally where people run into issues is more with the environment than the dysarthria, but of course over time, if it continues to deteriorate fairly quickly, you may reach that point of diminishing return, at which point it's time to consider moving on and getting them to make a voice with however many phrases you've done so far. Another question here, how do you load the voices onto the devices? That's a really good question. That varies from device to device. So for example, with an iPad with Predictable, it's actually got a ModelTalker section built into the settings, which makes it nice and easy. You just put in your ModelTalker username and password, it downloads the voice. For Windows-based systems, it's a little bit more involved than that. You download a program that ModelTalker sends you, and then that will allow that voice to appear in the voice list of programs on your computer, such as Communicator 5 that use those types of voices. But all those instructions come from ModelTalker.
And it's probably important to note that TalkLink are always available at that stage for support via email or phone to get you through that setup and download process as well.
That's right, absolutely. Another question here, how have you found access to the equipment needed in order to complete voice banking? How easily or quickly are you getting equipment to the client, and how long is it taking? A 2-week equipment loan seems short for voice banking. Yeah, completely agree. I mean, most people will not get through it in the 2 weeks, and we find that with headsets, we're generally needing to loan them out for about 3 months at a time. I know that in our office here in Christchurch, we've identified a number of headsets that are ModelTalker compatible. Logitech ones are good, Sennheiser ones are good, and we probably would encourage DHBs as well, if they can, to have one that they can loan out. Some clients have chosen to self-purchase headsets as well. We're doing our best, obviously, to get them there as quickly as we can, and making sure they're in place for as long as we need them. But at the end of the day, there is, of course, a finite number of resources to go around. But I think on the whole, we've been pretty good in the sense that people who have wanted to voice bank have managed to have access to equipment. The bigger issue can be if they can't use their own computer, or they don't have a computer for whatever reason, then we need to find something that we can loan out for a little bit longer, which can be difficult when there's competing demands for that. But most people either themselves or know someone who has got a computer that's compatible. Another question: if we wanted to donate our voices, do we need to pay the $150? As far as I'm aware, no. So I think one of the perks of, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the perks of being a donor is that you get a copy of your voice free of charge, which only seems fair, really. Cool. So I guess having a read through these questions here. This could be a Michelle question. Yep.
So the question is, does it work well to have an adult model a sentence for a child if they can't read at the level of the given sentences? So this is actually what I had done for the 9-year-old boy. He struggled a little bit with some of the reading aspects of it, and so I read out loud all of the sentences for him to repeat after me. Also, there is the auditory prompt which comes through the headsets. He just didn't like hearing the American voice and preferred the New Zealand accented model that I was giving him to use. So definitely you don't have to use the model provided by the software. You can sort of swap it around. And I found also that he was a bit more motivated when we were setting some goals and that sort of thing for him to get through so many sentences in 10 minutes or something like that. Whereas when he was just sitting there listening to the American model, he did get off task a lot more. So I hope that would also be quite helpful if you were wanting to record a child's voice.
Well, I think that's all the questions that we've had come in. Thank you very much for those. Just another note, you mentioned that all devices come with a standard voice that you can use. So of course, if someone cannot do ModelTalker for whatever reason, then you'll be able to use the synthetic voice that are built into devices. So it's not essential to have. And of course, as we were saying right back at the beginning, it fits in with phrase banking as well, which is where people are recording specific phrases to them, and what they put in is exactly what they get out. So someone can still do phrase banking even if they are not wanting to do ModelTalker, because it is a larger commitment with the 1,600 phrases. I'll just have one more check here of Q&A, but I think we've got through all of those. So thank you very much for all your participation and all your questions. As I said earlier, this will be available on demand, so you can go back and watch it again, which could be helpful if you're going through it with a client. We do have a quick guide as well, which hopefully will be up on the TalkLink website at some point in the not too distant future alongside this webinar. And definitely do check out modeltalker.org for any questions as well, because their website is really helpful and informative, and there's a really good section on there with frequently asked questions, and it walks you through the process as well. So it's certainly something that if you or your client wanted to do, you'd be very well supported through the process. Thank you very much for your time, and we will sign off. All the best with your ModelTalker journey. Bye for now.